Dolphins quarterback Tua Tagovailoa suffered another concussion after he was hit hard, struggled to get back up. He has a history of concussions. Larry's here with the story.
On September 12, 2024, the Dolphins' worst nightmare played out in real time when their star quarterback, Tua Tagovailoa, took a brutal hit and went down with what became his third concussion in the NFL, right in the middle of their game against the Buffalo Bills. The scene was nothing short of terrifying. The air practically vanished from the stadium as everyone watched it all unfold. Tagovailoa was ruled out in the third quarter, and what followed was a crushing 31-10 loss. But honestly, the game was the least of their concerns. And as much as it sucks, the fallout from this moment is far bigger than just a bad loss. The long-term consequences will send shockwaves through Tua's career, the Dolphins' future, and frankly, the entire NFL. And in this video, we'll be breaking it all down for you, how the entire thing played out and what it means for everyone involved. You see, the game between the Dolphins and the Bills started like any regular NFL showdown until it became clear that something was off. Miami's defense was struggling from the start, but it was Tua's performance that really had people on edge. The Bills, on the other hand, wasted no time taking control. Josh Allen was having one of his best games ever, even with a glove on his left hand to protect an injury he sustained the previous week. He hit his targets, completed 13 of 19 passes for 139 yards, and threw a 17-yard touchdown to James Cook, who was also on fire, by the way.
The Cook has found the kitchen on a 17-yard touchdown reception.
Cook scored 2 more touchdowns with a 1-yard run and a monster 49-yard sprint. By halftime, the Bills were already up 24-7, leaving the Dolphins looking completely out of sync. Tua was having a rough time too. The Bills' defense had him scrambling, and even though he managed to connect on a few decent plays, Miami could only put up a touchdown and a field goal in the first half.
Tua under pressure, flips it to the outside, and Achane is there.
However, it was during the third quarter that all hell really broke loose. As Miami faced a fourth down, trailing by 21 points, Tua took matters into his own hands. He went for it, but in a brutal collision with Bills safety Damar Hamlin, Tua's head slammed hard, and almost immediately his arms locked up in an eerie position, which was a fencing response. The entire stadium went dead silent. Both Dolphins and Bills players immediately waved for trainers, knowing how serious this was. Tua stayed down there for a few agonizing minutes before being helped to his feet. He managed to walk off on his own, but you could tell it wasn't good. He had thrown for 145 yards and a 5-yard touchdown to Achane, but that was the last thing on anyone's mind. This was about much more than the game now. It was about Tagovailoa's life. And it doesn't help matters that throughout his career, he has had an insane trail of injuries and concussions, a trail that began as far back as his college career. Now, Tua's rise to stardom started with a bang, no doubt. He stepped in for Jalen Hurts during the second half of the 2018 National Championship game and led Alabama to a thrilling overtime win against Georgia. Overnight, he became a household name, and the starting quarterback role was his for the taking. But along with the spotlight came a frustrating string of injuries that stuck with him throughout his college career. At Alabama, it felt like Tua was always battling something. He broke his left index finger, sprained his knee, and had a quad injury, all in 2018. On top of that, he hurt his right ankle and had to undergo tightrope surgery, which isn't your typical recovery process. The following year, he messed up that same ankle again and had to go through another tightrope surgery. But the worst injury came later that year when he dislocated his right hip, which immediately brought his college career to an abrupt and painful end. Through all that, concussions didn't really come up, at least not officially, but that changed when he was set to hit the NFL. Going into the 2020 NFL Draft, Tua was still seen as one of the top quarterback prospects, but there was plenty of worries about his ability to stay healthy. That hip injury from his final season at Bama was bad enough, but then he was also diagnosed with a concussion and a broken nose around the same time. It was a rough way to head into the pros, and those concussion concerns have only grown louder since. And when you think about it, those concerns are as valid can be.
That clock in his head when he's in the pocket, as far as getting rid of the football, that could alleviate a lot of the hits that he took in college that were unnecessary.
Tagovailoa bounced back quickly enough to suit up for the Dolphins as a rookie, but even then, injuries were already starting to pile up. Over his first 2 seasons, he missed 5 games with various minor issues. In 2020, during his rookie year, it was a thumb injury that sidelined him for a bit. But honestly, the real red flags started flying in 2022. That year, things got scary. During a game against the Buffalo Bills, Tua took a hit that had everyone worried, but it was brushed off as a back injury. Just 4 days later, he was back on the field against the Cincinnati Bengals, and that's when disaster struck. Tua took another hit, and this time it ended in a serious concussion. It was so bad that he had to be stretched off the field. As if that wasn't bad enough, later in the 2022 season, Tua suffered another concussion in a game against the Green Bay Packers. This one was also bad enough to knock him out of the final 2 games of the season. The back-to-back concussions really put his long-term health and his future in the league under a microscope. Luckily, 2023 came, and it felt like Tua had finally flipped the script. Not only did he manage to stay healthy, but he also put up the best numbers of his career. His performance blew everyone away. Even the Dolphins were so impressed, they locked him down with a massive 4-year, $212.1 million contract extension in July. It was the kind of comeback that made everyone believe Tua had finally turned the corner and left his injury struggles behind. Or at least, that's what we all thought. Just 2 weeks into the new season, and here we are again, talking about another concussion. This time, though, the stakes feel even higher. The ripple effect of this injury could seriously cost Tua and the Dolphins an arm and a leg. For starters right now, the Dolphins only have 3 quarterbacks on their roster, with Tagovailoa being their main man. Skylar Thompson is stepping in as the backup, and while Gavin Hardison, a rookie hungry to prove himself, is also around, let's be honest, neither of them is ready to fill Tua's shoes just yet. And if things really go south, the Dolphins would have to rely on Tim Boyle, who isn't even on the active roster. Basically, none of these guys are the solution right now. So, if Tua is out for a while, the Dolphins could be in serious trouble for the rest of the season. Oh, and let's not forget about the $200 million they've got tied up in Tua's contract, just hanging in the air. But as bad as it is for the Dolphins, it's even worse for Tua. He's stuck in an impossible spot. If he decides to prioritize his health, it might mean saying goodbye to his NFL career. But if he chooses to keep playing, like he did after his previous concussions, he's risking way more than just football. He's putting his life on the line. And when you factor in his wife and kids, it makes you wonder what's really worth it in the long run. Right now, Tua has been placed on injured reserve, and the Dolphins coach Mike McDaniel said he'll undergo thorough testing and evaluation. The NFL has a pretty detailed return to participation protocol, which is a 5-step process. It ends with the team's physician and an independent neurological consultant agreeing that a player is safe to get back on the field. But to get to that stage, Tagovailoa would need to rest and recover until his symptoms and neurological exam return to baseline status. After that, he'd move on to light aerobic exercise. If all goes well, he'll progress to more intense aerobic workouts and start some strength training. The final step is full clearance, which means both the physician and the neurological consultant have to sign off on his readiness to play again. Until then, it's difficult to predict whether or not Tua will decide to keep playing football, especially when you consider the fact that he confirmed thinking about retiring after his 2022 concussion. We'd like to see your thoughts in the comments section. Do you think Tua will take a bow from football, or will he make another epic comeback like he did in 2023?